history of the Bismarck Fire Department. This is a presentation that we've all been very excited about. Jason Tomanek, who is our vice president and of course he's the city administrator, has been working with Chris and some of his colleagues to put this together. I know they've unearthed a lot of interesting stuff, some photos, some artifacts. It's going to be really interesting, and it is, what, 153 years, I think, the Bismarck Fire Department has been in existence. So,
148.
I'm really thankful to Chris for doing this. He's put a lot of work into this. We're all looking forward to seeing what he's found. Please welcome Chris Anderson.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. As Tori said, my name is Chris Anderson. I've worked for the fire department now for 10 years. I'm married to my beautiful wife, Ashley. Our two kids, Reese and Hazel. My wife is here tonight. Our kids are not. However, if they were, you would know, as you probably would not be focused on me. I was born and raised in the greatest little town in America, Fezzidan. Anyone that knows me well knows how proud and how much I love my little town. Before we start, before we get too far into it, as deep and rich as our history is, it is not without tragedy. We do have 3 line of duty deaths within the fire department. Clayton Finlayson and Arnold Opp were both killed in vehicle crashes responding to a fire, and Pete Hoffman died of a heart attack immediately following his shift. Clayton was responding to a fire in the middle of the night, essentially where the location of the event center is now. The driver of the truck failed to negotiate the curve, and that is how Clayton died when the truck rolled over. Mr. Opp was responding to a grass fire when the steering linkage in the truck failed on what is now Century Avenue, right next to the cemetery. Clayton was 30, Arnold was 26, and Mr. Hoffman was 57. We display these names at our headquarters fire station immediately when you enter the building, so they are always recognized. So I have practiced this presentation several times. However, if it sounds like I am terribly nervous, it is because I am. I practiced with my wife, and the first time I went through, I got done, and she said, "Well, that was really good, honey, but what the heck is an engine? What's a company?" And then I realized I was presenting to someone that didn't quite understand all the common terms that we use around the fire station. So I created a quick little glossary here to go through real quick with you before we start, so you can kind of understand what I'm talking about when I say these terms, okay? The first one, probably the most common one that you're gonna hear, is company. Now, what is a company? A company was essentially a team of firefighters that was assigned to a engine or a hook and ladder truck. In the early days, companies were made up of 25, 30, 35 people, depending on the number of people that were available to show up to the fire. Nowadays, we are much more efficient, and our companies nowadays are made up of 3 to 4 firefighters. A couple things about this photo. A couple of my real good friends over there on the right. However, I promise you that everybody on the left here is much tougher than everyone on the right. I promise you. Engine, you're going to hear me say the word engine a lot tonight. Now, I will get into later on what an engine was, what it is, and how it worked. But for now, just understand that back in the old days, it literally was an engine that was pulled around by the horses, which turned a pump, which pushed the water out. And that was just the traditional term that we carried along in fire service. And that is your most common fire truck that you will see on the road. Truck. The term truck is commonly thrown around. Back in the day, it was a big, long wagon full of ladders, often called the hook and ladder truck, super common. And again, nowadays, it was just carried into present times, and that is our current truck company, or our truck for our truck company on the right over there. Rescue truck. These are specialized trucks. We have 2 of them currently in service in Bismarck. We have one at our south station and one at our north station. Our south station rescue truck is our structure collapse truck, along with our trench rescue truck. Our north rescue truck is our hazmat truck. Brush truck, these are the trucks that will respond to grass fires. Not a whole lot of cool things about brush trucks. Crash truck. When visiting with my wife and mother-in-law, again last night, I said crash truck several times, and it looked like at me like I was speaking German. They had never heard of that before. So again, that gets brought up here in a little bit. So just, you guys have, I'm sure, seen all these in pictures and movies and such. So when I say crash truck, this is what I am referring to. So in the beginning, when Bismarck became Bismarck in 1873, they recognized the lack of fire protection. So in 1877, the Pioneer Hook and Ladder Company was formed. It was the very first fire company formed in the Dakotas. Note at this time, North Dakota was still not a state. Originally, it had 35 members, and Ed Sloan was the foreman, which they were referred to back then. Nowadays, they're referred to as chiefs. Eventually, the Banner Hook and Ladder Company was formed. The Pioneer Hook and Ladder Company was renamed to the Pioneer Hose Company in 1886. Now, when that change happened, the members from the Pioneer Hook and Ladder Company were furious. They had grown to have a great pride in their company and their job and their responsibility, and along with a new name came a new responsibility. They would be now given a new engine to pull behind the horses, and they were not happy about that one bit. So in the early years, there was no real, true, dedicated fire station. They bounced around in buildings downtown. Some just didn't fit all the apparatus. They actually started one of them on fire. That was not greatly talked about a lot. You can probably understand why. So in 1911, they built one at 515 Thayer, the downtown station. That was open until 1980. It was designed to fit all 3 companies, and the second level of the building served as the city hall. And then in the mid-70s, the glaring need for fire protection both north and south was very evident. So the city made a plan to build 2 stations. In 1974, Station 2 was built at 9th and Expressway. And here you go with your crash trucks. Up until the early 2000s, I'm not sure on the exact year. I guarantee you someone in this room does know the exact year. I would like to visit with you later. It had 2 crash trucks stored in the station. Now, those crash trucks were not the primary trucks for the airport station. The airport did have its own fire station, but whenever the need came, the 2 crash trucks would respond to the airport for assistance. Today, it holds Engine 2, Rescue 2, and Brush 2. Station 1 was opened shortly after in 1976. When this station was opened, the downtown Thayer station was closed and repurposed by the city. When it opened, it originally had public health, environmental health, and the building inspections department. A lot going on back in that west side of the office back there. Now, currently, it is just our administration and 2 companies within the station. Engine 1 and Truck 1, and along with the battalion chief, run out of that station.
This is the one that's north of the Capitol?
That is correct. Yep. Just kind of tucked in northwest corner of Divide and State Street. Station 3 was opened in 1994 up on Tyler Parkway and Divide, and it holds Engine 3. Old Station 4 is Sleepy Hollow Station. This is where I started my career in 2015. I was there in 2018. I was there actually through the closing of the station. It's still standing today. Again, it is repurposed by the city. This is at 26 and Divide. When this station was closed, new Station 4 was opened. This is located on Miriam Avenue, and right now with the construction, good luck getting there. Today it holds Engine 4 and Brush 4. Along with that, it has our training building. Now, our training building gets used almost daily. We were just down there today doing some training in it. As soon as we were done inside it, another company come down and started using it as well. Inside this training building, we can start a real fire. We can have live fire in there. We have it plumbed so that we can pump in fake smoke. We have anchors all over the buildings to do rope training so we can actually rappel off the side of the building. Some crews just built a confined space prop inside the building so we can practice our confined space rescue. All sorts of endless opportunities that we can do within our awesome training building. Station 5 was opened up in 2010. It is up on Lockport and 43rd, and it holds Engine 5 and Rescue 1, which is the hazmat crew. We refer to them as our nerds. So this is a topic that I could have done a completely separate presentation on. This is my favorite topic to research, to learn about, was the apparatus, the trucks that were used over the years. I actually, when I was done building this presentation, I had to go through and delete a whole bunch because I had way too many that you guys probably would have been sleeping by the time I had gotten through all of them. But this is Pioneer Hose Company pulling their engine. Now, Bismarck had chemical engines. They did not have steam engines. Bismarck didn't have a water supply until 1884. Okay, so they were not able to pump consistent water, so they had chemical engines. Now, what that was, it was a pump that was pulled by the horses. It had 3 tanks. I had to write this down because I am not a nerd. I have to give you the chemical that it was. Let me find my notes here. Where did we go? I want to get this right. Sodium bicarbonate and sulfuric acid were the 2 tanks, and there was a small tank of water. Okay, the tank of water was generally pretty small, roughly 40 gallons, somewhere in there, not a whole lot of water. When you mix the 2 chemicals, it was essentially the same as shaking a soda pop and then twisting off the cap. When you did that, it forced the water through the hose, but once you expelled all your water, you were done. And it took them 10 minutes to fill everything back up. They bragged about it. They were pretty proud about how efficient it was, but it was roughly 10 minutes to fill everything back up and be able to spray water again. In 1922, Bismarck bought its very first motorized fire truck. Nowadays, when you build a fire truck, speaking from experience, Chief Martin, I don't know where you're at, but you can attest to this, it is probably over a year-long process to go through and custom build the entire truck and pick out everything that we want on it down to the finest detail. This spec sheet said that it had to have a 500 gallon a minute pump and it had to go 35 miles an hour. That was it. That is what they wanted. In 1926, Bismarck bought its second motorized truck. When this one showed up at the station, the horses started looking around at each other and said, "Uh-oh, our end is near. We are not going to be needed much longer." They could see the writing on the wall. This was a 750-gallon-a-minute pump. It was a 1926 Seagrave. I have a ton of photos that I could have chosen to display this truck. However, this is most likely picture number 1 of this truck. This photo was provided me by Andy. I saw Andy. There he is. Thank you, Mr. Beck. He provided me with this picture. Now, I'm not allowed to go into too much detail about this. However, I am super excited to say that the city of Bismarck is currently in the process of regaining possession of this very truck. In 1948, Bismarck bought its first aerial fire truck. It was an 85-foot American LaFrance. And when they were building this truck, they forgot a very key part: no roof. But who needs roofs in North Dakota in the winter? Here's a photo of this truck being used for the very first time on a fire, the Knights of Columbus building, on Christmas Day of 1948. The firefighters claimed that on its very first use that this truck paid for itself 10 times over for how efficient it was and the amount of the building that they were able to save.
Did they save the building?
They saved most of it. I can't say, it didn't really get into too much detail on how much the building was destroyed or saved, but reading the article of the interviews with the firefighters, they were elated at how much they were able to save because they had the ability to go up into the building from the air.
Is it still standing today?
I cannot answer that, honestly. I am not quite sure. Does anyone know if that building?
I think it is, Chris.
It is still? Okay. Oh, it is? Okay. Yeah, I'm not quite sure of the location of this building, so I can't say for sure. Old engine number 3. Now, originally, I hadn't planned on using this truck in this presentation. However, I think this truck probably has the neatest little history nugget. Is anyone in here movie buff? Anyone like movies? No movies? Yes, Old Engine 3 was in a movie. 1948 Seagrave, 1,000 a minute, or 1,000 gallon a minute pump, featured in a movie, starred in a movie, still no roof. In 1964, someone said, "Hey, how about a roof?" So they put a roof over the heads. However, it's hard to see in this photo, but the back of this cab is still wide open. That went on until at least 1985. To my knowledge, this was the last truck that Bismarck bought that was open cab. I was fortunate enough to ride in this truck in the back. I believe it was the very last call that this truck ever went on, actually. And I can say from experience that it was absolutely miserable. And that was in the middle of the summer. Nowadays, we are we're actually pretty spoiled with the equipment that we have. We have very nice trucks. Along with that, we are actually quite a bit safer with all of our new equipment. All of our trucks now, they all have enclosed cabs, as you can see. They also have seat belts. 90% of our fire trucks have airbags. There are cameras all over this thing, backup cameras. Those come standard now on most fire trucks. So they are much, much safer nowadays. This is our new Engine 3. Unfortunately, to my knowledge, this has no plans of being in a movie anytime soon. However, our current Truck 1 was featured in the Pierce calendar that they put out every year, last year. Now, why this is a big deal is that Pierce puts out, I don't know, Chief, what do you think, roughly close to 1,000 trucks a year? Would you say close to 1,000 trucks a year Pierce will manufacture? Fire departments across the country will campaign on why they want their truck to be featured in the calendar. And we were fortunate enough to be one of the 12 last year, which is super neat.
Which one?
What's that?
Which one?
August.
That's your swimsuit edition?
Yeah. That's coming out next year.
$2 million truck, or how much is that?
I'm not quite sure on the price. I don't have to write the check. I don't write the checks.
Is that the
So.
most expensive one we have?
That one is 1.3.
1.3? They're good negotiator.
And in today's dollars, it'd be closer to 2.
What happened to the Seagrave company?
Seagrave still does make fire trucks. Yep.
You just switched companies?
Yep. We just switched companies. Yep. So this is another topic that I could have spent a whole nother couple hours on, going through the different fires, significant fires that have happened over the years. Unfortunately, due to time, I couldn't do all of them, so I had to choose a few. There is no real reason as to why I chose the ones that I did, simply for the fact that I was able to get a lot of information, and there's some pretty neat pictures that I was able to find on them. The first one, I promise you, I can guarantee you all know about already, most likely. The fire of 1898 started around 9 o'clock downtown in the Northern Pacific Freight House. A strong southwest wind pushed the fire right into the heart of downtown. One of the first buildings to go up in flames was the telegraph office. An attempt was being made to send a telegraph to Mandan for help. That telegraph was never received. However, Mandan looked out their window and said, we should go to that. So Mandan showed up. Unfortunately, there was not much that anyone could do. This fire was moving very, very quickly, and it was a losing battle before it even started. The fascinating thing about this fire to me is that around midnight, most of the fire had already done its damage. It was essentially smoldering by midnight. That's 3 hours. We have been on fires that involve one room of a house for 3 hours. I can't imagine what this looked like back then. How fast that was moving, how hot that must have been. The amount of smoke that it was producing, the flames that it was producing, would have been an absolute sensation to see. Now these next few photos that I have here, these are screenshots of a video that KFYR put out a while back. And as we go through these, we are going to be moving in a northwestern counterclockwise direction. There was damage reported as far as 6 blocks from the downtown area from this fire. The other one I'm sure you all know about is the Capitol Fire in 1930, shortly after Christmas. A janitor was working in the first floor of the building around 7:30. He heard a loud bang. He went up to investigate the noise. He did not see anything, so he returned to his work. Shortly after that, he heard a very loud, what he described as a roar. So he stepped outside to investigate. When he got outside, he looked up and the entire 4th floor was fully engulfed. So he, of course, called the fire department. Back then, the fire department only had 2 fire trucks. So they responded with 2 fire trucks. One of those fire trucks got stuck on the way on 6th Street and had to be pulled all the way up to the Capitol by a telephone company truck. Once they arrived to the fire, the lack of water hindered their efforts to put out the fire. And again, it was so far advanced that there was just not much anyone could do.
What agency was on that floor?
I am not sure. That would be a question for Miss Cindy Solberg, who helped me out with a lot of this information. She actually was giving me information faster than I could write down, so that would be a fascinating question for her. There's a very neat story about a 12-year-old boy who lived on a farm on 13th and Boulevard. Now that in itself is hard to imagine, a farm at 13th and Boulevard. He was working in the hayloft when he saw the smoke, so he hopped on his bike. I don't know if bikes were invented back then yet. Maybe he ran over there. He made his way over there, snooping around. He eventually come across his neighbor. His neighbor grabbed him and helped him into the window, where he began grabbing documents and artifacts and stuff like that to try and preserve everything, photos, anything that they could find to try and preserve as much as they could. There are some neat photos online of the stuff that they did pull out of the Capitol. I didn't put them in here. I didn't want to steal photos without permission or anything like that. But that 12-year-old boy that was in there doing that was Mr. Al Odie, who later became fire chief of the fire department for many years. Fortunately, no one was hurt. The only injury that came, so someone got hurt, but the only injury that came that day was a gentleman cut his hand on a piece of glass as he was trying to reach in and grab the only handwritten copy of the state constitution, which, by the way, was saved. The Fleck Garage fire in 1951. This fire started by a light bulb that exploded over a pan of gasoline. A woman was having car troubles, so she pulled into the repair shop. The mechanic had taken a sample of her gas tank, and when he pulled it out from underneath the car, the light exploded, sparks exploded. She backed out. She was able to make it out safely. However, 35 to 40 vehicles were destroyed, and only 3 of them were saved. Chief Harry Holman was actually scheduled to have repairs done to his vehicle on this very day, and he had business to take care of at work, which caused him to miss his appointment. Later did he know, or later did he find out that he would be there anyway. Now, a very interesting thing, thinking about how different times are. Obviously, as you can see here, civilians, mechanics helping out with the hose, holding the hose. If this were to happen nowadays, these gentlemen here, they would probably receive an earful. They'd probably be in a little bit of trouble for kind of interrupting our work. As would the gentleman that threw a 12-year-old boy into a burning building at the Capitol. The Grand Pacific Hotel fire in 1954. This was a very dark day, in history. Probably not for the reason that you're thinking. This building was located at the current site of the Wells Fargo Bank on 4th and Broadway. The fire was discovered around 3 a.m. and it was caused by two gentlemen that were, what did I say last night, honey? Very heavily socializing. They made their way up into the room. One of them lit a cigarette and passed out, which is how the fire started. Everybody that was in the building, I believe 78 people were in the building, 78 guests were in the building. They all made it out safely. 3 of them had to be carried down the aerial ladder. But everyone ended up being okay. The reason being, it a dark day, was the gentleman that started the fire was from my beloved hometown, Pheasant. He does not have a statue built in his honor back home. The PV elevator fire in 1979. This was located at 8th and Front. This was believed to have been started by unhoused individuals. Police had been chasing them out for days prior to this happening. Fortunately, the elevator was not in use at the time of the fire. It was actually scheduled to be torn down the following summer. So not a whole lot of drama on this fire, other than just some very neat photos.
Was there grain in it?
There was not. There was not. There was no grain in it. However, their focus was on the silos over there, as there was still grain dust still present, which is explosive. So I don't know if I included any photos in here of them spraying water on, but that was their main focus at the time, was to keep them from exploding. There were 2 trains that were shut down outside of town. And when I first learned that, I thought, well, of course, the elevator's right next to railroad tracks, the collapse hazard, which it did eventually fall. I thought that was the reason. The reason the trains were shut down is because the firefighters had to lay hose across the tracks. They fought this fire for roughly 2 hours before it was decided to just let it burn down, since it was, again, like I said, scheduled to be torn down the following summer. The Logan Building fire, March 24, 1984. I hear a lot of, sorry. This fire was started by some cleaning chemicals in the basement that mixed with an electric fan that caused the fire. This call came in, excuse me, roughly around 1:30 in the afternoon on a Sunday. Initially, upon arrival, firefighters had some trouble with hydrants, which delayed the process of getting their aerial ladder set up. Unfortunately, I don't believe, it didn't sound like it would have made much of a difference, as the fire was very tricky to reach and to get to. But they did the best that they could with what they had to work with. Unfortunately, 2 firefighters were hurt during this fire. One fell off a ladder roughly 8 feet in the air and broke his wrist, and the other broke his elbow moving 5-inch hose. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll just go through a little bit about how the technology has advanced through the years, how it was back then compared to how it is now, how it led up to where we are now. So the first one is, how was the fire department reached? Well, originally they had to rely on a watchman who had to run the streets and alert the firefighters that there was a fire. That sounds awful, having to run around in the middle of the night, waking everyone up, cold and everything. Eventually they did get a bell. The bell was placed in service in 1880, and it rang for the first time on February 19th, 1880. Along with that, electric bells were installed in the chief's homes. I suggested that the other day, that we do that to Chief Martin's home. That idea was shot down immediately. Eventually, the original bell that they had, it became worn out and it was too quiet, and it caused some problems within the department. Firefighters around town were actually missing fires because they couldn't hear it. So in 1888, they put a new one up, a much bigger and louder one. And when the new station was built, that bell came with to the new station. And when the building was torn down in 1980, as you can see in this photo here, the bell was moved to current Station 1, where it is still on display today. Our old friend Alex Bell, when he invented the phone in 1876, Bismarck didn't quite get phone service until 1883. So when they did, they eventually people were able to call the fire department directly, and they were able to respond. Along with that, alarm boxes were placed strategically throughout the city, and what that was just a red box that had a telephone in it. And when you picked up the phone, it rang directly, automatically, to the fire station, which would light up a light as seen on this board here. Each number corresponded with a district of town, and that is how the firefighters knew where to go. The problem with those was that people were mistaking those for payphones. So they would pick them up, realize there was a fire department, hang up real quick, and then run away. The fire department would still respond. They would treat that as a real call. And that is actually still what happens to this very day. We receive, our automatic fire alarms all the time, and we treat them as real fires until we can confirm that they are not a true emergency. The next topic is the horses. I don't know if I would have made it as a firefighter back in the day. I don't do well with horses. I don't like horses. Disclaimer: this is not a photo of Bismarck's apparatus that they had, their harness. I couldn't find an actual photo of one from Bismarck, so I just grabbed one and used this as an example. The way this worked was that those horses were trained so well that when the doors were opened, they were trained to run to their spot. The driver would hop up and pull a cord. The harness would then lower down on top of the horse. The firefighters would tie them up, and off to the races they went. In the paper, the fire department bragged about their 5.5 minute turnout time. Today we have 90 seconds. If we go over 90 seconds, we have to explain why we went over 90 seconds. So you can see how much more efficient we have become there. Where's the fire? How did you know where the fire was? The bell ringer, who was paid $2 every time he rang the bell for a fire, he would sound a general alarm. He would wait a few seconds, and then he would ring it however many more times corresponded to the district of town. And that is how you know, or how you knew, where to go. I can't imagine the inconvenience of having to try and listen for 5 or 6 rings as you're running down the street trying to get to the fire hall. But that is how they did it back then. Eventually, firefighters hand drew these run cards along with using a typewriter. Yes, I know what a typewriter is. I'm old enough to know what a typewriter is. When I started my career, these were still in the station. They were not regularly used. But from what I have been told, these were a very unpopular item across the department. Or the firefighters did not really enjoy these, having to deal with these. The way these worked is every intersection, every street was labeled up here, and the intersections were laid out there. This is kind of hard to see, but each house number is represented right there, and that is how they knew where to go. This is another photo of one. I just wanted to show you how, I know this is super hard to read. Just wanted to point out that these circles represented fire hydrants. And on the back, it explained where the utilities were for the corresponding building. Nowadays, we have it a lot easier. This is what our current computer system has. This is what the captain sees that is right in front of him in the truck. We have an iPad in there, and this is the map of the entire city. Now this little blue circle right here, that represents the truck that you are in. These yellow boxes down here, E1, of course, stands for Engine 1, Engine 5. BC3 is Battalion 3, so we can see where all the fire trucks are at any given time. These other ones, 6140 and 6255, those are ambulances, so we can also see where those are at. And when a call comes in, as we can see here, Engine 3 is on a call. This is what it looks like. It gives us a little icon of where we're going. So what I did to show you, give you an example, was I called dispatch and I had them send me a test call so I could give an example. When your engine or your truck receives a call, this is the screen that will pop up on your iPad automatically. whatever type of call you're going to, whether it be a structure fire, a medical, a service call, whatever the type of call you're going to, that will pop up right up there. Of course, then the address will pop up next. This is the address to fire station number 1. And then the business name. So if we were going to the mall, it would say the address of the mall, then it would say Kirkwood Mall. And these are the cross streets. So a bunch of fail safes in here so you know where to go. Up on the top right corner is a picture of a map. When we click on that, it'll automatically zoom in on the location of the call. And here again, you can see this pin right here is identifying where the call is. Our blue arrow represents us, and you can see that Battalion 2 is also at the fire station. Now, as we are going to these calls, we are constantly updated with information, whether it be if we're going to a fire, if the caller is now seeing smoke or seeing fire, or if we're going to a medical and the patient is now unconscious, whatever it may be, we're constantly updated both over the radio and in our notes. So for this call, when we click on our notes, we are updated with the information that we could see Chief Martin simply burned supper and there's no real emergency. So to kind of bring it full circle, in the beginning, there was no true real station. They didn't have a real solid spot. Today we have 5 of them. Originally there was 35 firefighters. Now we have 91 fire department personnel. That includes our chiefs, fire marshals, secretary, everyone. Last year we ran over 6,300 calls. I dug back as far as I could find, and the latest record that I can find was in 1929. The fire department ran 71. So you can see how much of an increase that is, and that number only continues to go up. So that is what I have for you tonight. Thank you. I was going to say I have time for some questions. We don't have all night. Unfortunately, we have to be out of here eventually. I'm actually kind of looking forward to this because most of the time when we take questions, we are taking questions from first graders, and it's pretty miserable. The guys can, their stories. They're most of the time their stories. So I will do the best I can to answer the question to the best of my ability, but I can't promise I will be able to answer every question. Okay? What's that? Yes. Chief, do you want to talk on this real quick since it's yours? So this is probably the neatest piece that we have up here. This is a bugle, and before the days of radios, this is what they used. The chief would shout his orders into this, and it obviously amplified his voice to the rest of the firefighters. I would encourage you to come take a closer look at this and look at the engraving. It says Foreman of Pioneer Hose Company, #1, Bismarck, North Dakota. Super, super neat piece right here. I am not going to do that. I will certainly mess it up. This is an old extinguisher. Chief, what year is this from? Do you know?
I don't remember.
Not sure what year this is from?
But that's one of the ones, the chemical ones you talked about.
Sure. Okay. Here's an example of that. This is an old straight stream nozzle. Do you know what truck this is off of?
I think it's off of old, Rob, is it off of old engine 2 or engine 1 from station 1?
I thought it was off the old ladder truck.
It could be off of 85.
Oh, okay. The A2, the mid mount, or the
85 to
85. Or the 48? The 48 La France?
No,
Or the,
no, 85.
okay, gotcha. Same thing here. How about these? Because some of these are just your personal ones, right? They're not all from our fire department. But again, this is just a nozzle. Chief actually took the time to shine these up, and I'm being serious too. He showed me a photo just a little bit ago, and they were pretty crusty, but he shined these up to make them look almost brand new, which is extremely impressive. So very, very neat pieces. Certainly welcome to come take a look when we're done here. But yes, did you have a question?
Okay, just, this is present day question,
Okay.
just for people's, that live by themselves.
Okay.
If you have gotten a call that's a health call that you're going to, and it's a security building or it's a regular building and you can't get in, how do you gain access?
We get in.
Okay.
We're getting in.
You can go through several doors if you have to get in.
Yes, depending on the severity of the situation, if it is someone that has stubbed their toe, and we're probably going to wait to get a set of keys, we might try and fidget with the lock a little bit. We might try a few things before we get too crazy. If it is someone that is having a heart attack or isn't breathing, we're going to break down the door. So one way or the other, we're getting in. Commercial buildings, apartment buildings, we have Knox box keys in all of our trucks. And what that is, it's a general key that goes to all the Knox boxes that only the fire department has access to. So we are able to use those to get into the buildings.
Can you give the fire department a code
Uh,
for your building? If there's a lock, if there's a code?
Yep, absolutely.
How do you go about doing that?
If you can give that information when you call, or if you're unable to call, I guess sometimes it might already be in there, depending on the inspection.
Can you give it to the police department to have ahead of time?
I think she's asking, like, how do we get it in the Knox box or the notes?
No. This is if you have a code pad on your, it's a condo that's a security building. Can we give you a code to that building with the address on it ahead of time in case there would be an emergency?
Yeah.
Somebody can't get in?
Yep, absolutely. And we're able to store that in our system. We're able to store that.
You can call the fire department and let us know, and then we can give it to dispatch, our central communications center.
Okay.
They can put it into our notes.
Okay.
And we've done that before. So if we get that call that showed up, they'll actually give us a note that says, these are some specific notes for that address that would then give us that code then for that punch pad.
But what about the code of the door that's inside them?
Typically, if it's a condo, we'll have a key to override.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So the firefighters, what are they, 24-hour shifts, how many off? And when you go to the fire station, you always go to the same vehicle, or can you get rotated to different vehicles?
Yeah, good question. So our shifts, you're correct. They are 24-hour shifts. So we start at 7 in the morning. So right now, C shift is working. They started at 7 o'clock this morning. They will go home tomorrow morning at 7, and they will have all day of Thursday off. They will then come back and start again Friday morning at 7, work 24 hours, and then they will have all day of Saturday off. And then, do you guys work Sunday? Okay, so you worked Monday. Okay, it's your second day, so you worked Monday. So they worked on Monday as well. So they started Monday morning. On Saturday morning, when they get off at 7 a.m., they'll go home for 4 days before they have to come back, and that cycle just continues to repeat. So they work 3 24-hour shifts with a day in between, and then they have 4 days break.
And you go to the same vehicle every day?
Oh, sorry, yes, I didn't finish your question. Typically, yes, you are assigned to a engine or a truck, and that is your base home, let's call it. Sometimes though, due to staffing, people that have called in sick, that are on vacation, whatever it may be, firefighters do move and fill in at other stations. But for the most part, you do report to the same engine or truck every time.
And just one more, is there sort of a general alarm that everybody comes out whether they're on vacation or not?
Yes, there is. Fortunately, those are rare, but there is, what happens is what we call a callback will come in. So when you go home, the morning that you get off and you go home, you are still on call. So if a big fire comes in and every truck in town has to go to it, which does happen, that leaves the rest of the city uncovered. So the battalion chief will request a callback, and now he can do either a station-specific callback, he can do a shift callback, or he can do an everybody callback. And it just depends on the severity of the incident. But again, those are rare. Now I say that, and in 5 minutes, they'll be striking one. But yes, there is, so when you go home, you are still on call until the following day. Mm-hmm.
I have a question. I'm curious about the original 35 firefighters in Bismarck. In your research, did you find out anything about what kind of people, like, were they professional, were they volunteer, were they paid? Did they have other side work?
Originally they were volunteer. They were originally volunteer. Eventually they were paid by insurance company based on the order that they arrived to the fire. Insurance companies would pay the first arriving company X amount of dollars, and then the next arriving company was less, of course, which created a natural competition amongst the firefighters. Now, I can promise you that competition is still very much alive within the fire service. Not necessarily racing to get the calls because we're all paid the same, but just the nature of firefighters is to be competitive in everything that we do. So.
When did it kind of shift towards something that resembles a little bit more like it is today, with it being a more developed profession?
Chief Carlson, can you speak on that? Do you have a...
I couldn't hear the question.
She asked, when did the department become paid more similar as to we are now? When did they become full-time employees paid not based on call?
I don't even know how much you're making now.
It's not very much.
But this guy here would probably know a little more than I would. Chuck? What was the question? From volunteers.
When did the department become? Sure. I want to say 40s, 50s. I found some research of an article that said fire department becomes fully paid, and that was in the mid-50s. However, further research, I found something similar in the 40s, and I was honestly a little bit confused about when it exactly was, because like I said, they were paid on call at one point as well. So as they were responding, they were paid hourly. So I'm not exactly sure of when the shift was.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I did double check the building that you showed from the 40s, that Christmas Day fire.
The Knights of Columbus, yep.
It is still there. It's the building that Lula Bee's boutique is in. It's
Okay.
on the southeast corner of 3rd and Broadway, like kitty corner. from
Oh,
Lula's
sure.
here.
Okay. Great. Awesome.
Good work, fire department.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's your 3rd grade question. How about a firehouse dog? I noticed on the first one with the horses and the wagon. They had a dog with them.
Allow me 1 second. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And what was that all about? One of the very, yeah.
This one right here? This dog right here? That dog's name was Roughneck. And he was the department mascot. Now, typically you see Dalmatians affiliated with fire departments. That tradition runs deep because Dalmatians worked well with horses. They would run alongside them on the way to the fires and help guide the horses. And Dalmatians were just a very common breed because they worked well with the horses. I don't know if Roughneck ran next to the horses or just rode along with the firefighter. It looks like he just rode along. So.
So, those horses were stabled right there in that building?
Yes, yep, right back here. You can kind of see the background here. This is the station. These were the two garage doors that led into the station. And I actually kind of wondered the same thing if the horses were just 100% tied up to the wagon at all times, which is why I started digging into the harness that was lowered from the ceiling. But no, they were able to, they had free run of the bay inside those garages. And then, like I said, when the doors were open, they knew to go to their spot and let the harness come down. So, yep.
So it says hook and ladder truck. What was the hook? It could have been an assortment of different things, but today it's essentially what we call a pike pole, which is just, they vary in lengths. We have one that's 6 feet, and we have one that's 12 feet. And it's just used to grab onto things, pull ceiling down, just get into ceilings and walls however we need. So, good question.
What was the name of the horses?
Tom and Snyder. Nice try, Matthew. That was Captain Wilkie that asked the question. He's probably in this photo here somewhere. If you're awake. Yes, ma'am.
I was glad to see that don't let civilians go anymore, because when the Logan fire happened, that's me.
Oh.
Our
Wow.
insurance agent sent us in to get books out.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah.
That's probably not going to happen today. Yeah.
Being in the back in the smoke,
Sure.
you guys do a wonderful job, because that was the scariest thing I think I've
Awesome.
ever done, and it was really stupid.
Well, yeah, that's not going to happen today. I can promise that. But very interesting. Yeah, back there.
You mentioned the 6,300 figure for
I'm-
calls.
I'm sorry?
The 6,300, is that all fire calls?
It is not. Actually, mostly the calls that we go on are EMS calls. We run alongside the ambulance. That's the majority of what we do is EMS calls. They're not all EMS calls. They're also service calls, odor calls, suspicious odor calls, general calls, but no. A very much smaller portion is actual fires.
And of that number, how many are fake?
I can't give you an exact number, but we of course have more false calls than we do real fires. We also have calls that are called in early that are not big deals because we arrive very early and are very aggressive and put them out before they do become bigger deals. So hard to give you an exact number on that. So.
What station are you from?
I originally...
you guys, what station are you guys from here? Are you from, you're in Bismarck, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. I'm at Station 1.
Okay, because I was saying, off of familiar, the one up by the Capitol?
Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
your guys' station.
Sure. Yes, sir, in the back.
When there's an incident on one of the 3 bridges we have here between Mandan and Bismarck, is there some kind of agreement, or Mandan or Bismarck, how do you respond to that?
There is. When there's an incident that happens on the bridge, both Bismarck and Mandan are automatically dispatched. And that is because when the caller calls it in, by the time that information gets to us, it can be construed a couple different times. I know, Andy, you can vouch for that. So we do that because if it's in the westbound lane, Bismarck will be able to get to it faster. And if it's an eastbound, of course, Mandan will be able to get to it. So it just, we do that, and then of course, if one city arrives before the other, then the other city will assist if needed. Otherwise, they'll just return back home. So, good question. Yes, ma'am.
Are all of your trucks hooking, do they all have ladders?
They do not. We have 5 engine companies at all times in service, and 1 truck company in service at all times.
And only one has a ladder?
And only one has an aerial ladder. They all have ground ladders, which range from 8 feet to 35 feet that we can extend. But the aerial ladder that we have is 100 foot. 100 feet. Yep. Yep. Yes, sir.
Like on that PV
Oh,
elevator.
I'm sorry. I pointed at both of you. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Like on that PV elevator, you said that you chose to let it burn. Who makes that call?
Multiple people probably. If nothing that the fire department can do to inhibit the fire, if all of our effort is being exhausted and it's not making a difference, if the fire continues to grow, eventually we have to back out for our own safety. Okay. Also, along with that, the owner, a business, someone to do with the business can come along and say, I don't care, just let this thing go. It all depends on the situation. I can't give you an exact answer every time. If there is, for an example, if we come across a fire that's fully involved in a structure, and we've made sure that there's nobody inside, it's vacant, there's no life threats or anything like that, we're not going to put ourselves in danger to try and save a building that is too far gone to save anyway. So that may have come into play there. Again, Mr. Ketterling, you stated a while back that you were actually there. You may have some more insight on who made that call.
The PV elevator, they decided, let it burn. The guy that was going to tear it down the next year,
Sure.
he got together with the chief and the owner and whatever, and they decided
Sure.
nobody got hurt and let it burn.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
they put it up and
Sure.
and they hauled it away the next year.
Sure. Yeah. So multiple people can make that call together. I'm sorry. You
use infrared technology?
Yes. So I'm sure you have all seen a fire truck either coming at you or coming up from behind you. You may have noticed that the street light has changed. The white light that is flashing, that is from an infrared sensor on our lights that is catching a sensor on the bar. So that is a way we do it. Are you referring to our cameras as well? Mm-hmm. Little known fact about the lights though, that's all infrared. That's not a flashing light, that's all done by infrared. It used to be a flashing, high intensity flashing light, it's now all infrared. But yes, our thermal imaging cameras, we of course have those. I should have, if I ever do this again, I will switch up the technologies that I go through. I'll tell you what. Again, I could have spent a whole nother 3 hours up here talking about that. But we of course, each engine and truck has a dedicated camera to it that we take in with us. Along with that, on our air packs, should have put a picture of that on here too. On our air packs, we have a built-in camera on those as well. So every firefighter on the scene has a camera with them that we can use. Good question. Yes, sir.
Talk a little bit, not in detail, the command structure. The city has a battalion commander, like you, right?
That is the battalion commander's boss, right back there.
He's the chief.
He's the deputy chief. Yep.
Oh, deputy chief.
Yep.
Okay, so let's say command structure.
Sure.
You got a battalion commander that oversees everything, operation.
Yep.
And then each company has a house.
Yep.
Fire station.
Yep.
You got 5 companies.
6.
6
Yep.
companies. And who commands a company?
The captain.
You got a captain at each site,
Yep.
and then what's next?
Firefighter.
Firefighter.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Before my time, I started 10 years ago. Before my time, there was lieutenants as well, which was, of course, underneath a captain. But today, we just have the battalion chief, who is in charge of 6 companies, and each captain has a crew that works for him.
And so, first truck on, or first one on scene,
Mm-hmm.
that captain, he's in charge
Correct.
until
Correct.
battalion chief.
Yep. Yes. Great question. So the first arriving officer is his responsibility is to assume command of the incident. Depending on the job that needs to be done, depending on how many are on his crew for the day, he may initiate what we call working command, where he will actually link up with his crew and go inside the building to fight fire, to perform rescue, whatever it may be. He'll be doing that job, but he will still be in charge, making decisions until the next arriving officer arrives on scene, and he will assume command. Eventually, when the battalion chief gets out of bed and gets there, he will then assume command of the entire situation.
And who does the interaction with the police force?
It's a joint command, depending on the situation. If it's a fire scene, if it's a house fire or structure fire, then it's essentially a fire department scene, right? And of course, if it's a law enforcement issue, if we're there for medical assist of something going on, law enforcement, they're in control. Otherwise, they have a joint command where either the battalion chief or Chief Martin, if it's a real big incident, they will work side by side with the chief of police or however their command structure works about. Great question. Yes, sir.
Can you talk about the complexity of fighting a fire like the interstate battery fire?
Yeah, there's a couple people in this room that were at that fire. I believe I, of course, was not there. I don't have very many fine details of it. Would anybody in this room that was there like to talk about it?
Oh, you're Rob's good. So interstate battery fire. Matt were you there? Matt was there, I was there, Carlson was there. I don't know who else was there. Joy was there. So there was a couple of us that were there. That one was probably the biggest thing we had with that one was the building was so old. So we didn't really I'll get a little bit to it. It's easier to fight fires in cold than it is hot, I think, because once you get encapsulated by the water, it kind of insulates you. So we kind of really had that with us, but with the interstate battery one, the biggest issue we had was the fire got ahead of us. We didn't know how long it had been burning. So when we got inside the fire and we started attacking it, we kind of were pushing fire all around us. And when I came out, Rob was the acting battalion chief that night. I was the captain on engine 2. And we were first in on that one. And then we went in to fight the fire. And then when I came out and talked to Rob had smelt it. He figured probably 2 hours before that. We were on 2 hours before that, we had a heat tape fire in a trailer house. And we were down on that one. And this is, if you remember the interstate battery one, this is when we had probably, it was between 20 and 30 below out that night. When Rob had left that trailer house fire and went north, he could smell something burning that it's kind of, if you've been to enough house fires, you kind of know what that house fire smell is like, or a structure fire is. And so when Rob drove around the area, I think for quite some time, trying to find it, but could never find a source of the smell. So then a couple hours after that, then we got dispatched to smoke pushing outside of the interstate battery building. So when we got down there, we obviously had smoke pushing outside the building of the interstate battery building. And so we got inside to fight the fire. We were pushing fire around, and so we came out, and then we were kind of like, hey, we got this great big billboard on top. We have nobody inside the structure, so now it goes back to what Chris talked about life safety. What are we willing to risk for something that's already lost? And that's one of the foundations that we built every response on, that we've been doing for quite some time. We build every response on. We'll risk a life to save a life. If someone's life is in danger, we're going to risk our lives to save their life. That's what we're in the business for. That's what all of us guys do to do that. That's what we're going to put our lives on to save somebody else. So we made a decision to back out of that and went kind of in a defensive mode within that fire, then to kind of put that fire out from the exterior instead of risking firefighters inside of that. Now that became much more harder to do with that, and then of course that expanded with itself, because now we're spraying water when it's 30 below out and made one great big ice castle. And within that, so that's one of those things. Like I said, fighting fire when it's cold, complexities you run into is everything's freezing up. How do you keep hose lines moving? How do you keep water moving? When it's like that, the thing we know is that as long as water's moving, it's not going to freeze. But as soon as we start seeing that water not moving, then we run into issues with that. So it's keeping the pumps moving and all of those things within all of that. And then, like I said, the thing with water is that once you got covered in the sheet of ice, it worked as an insulator. The problems you'd run into is when you would stop fighting fire and would then start to thaw out, then you got cold, and that's when you start having problems with that and stuff. Anything, RC or Joey or Nat, anything else there?
Brooks, what about the impact on the environment with all these batteries melting and acid and water running down?
So within that, we actually did, on that fire particularly, we did fill the underpass up with water. We did have environmental health come in and actually do some testing within that, but the amount of water that we were putting on the structure pretty much was neutralizing that, because we had so much gallonage of water within that. So even though we had runoff with batteries and stuff like that, it really didn't become a factor because we were diluting it so much with the amount of volume of stuff we're there. We did fill the underpass up at 9th there with water at one point. And then eventually that got drained out of there. But that was a question and concern that was brought up, is what do you do with the battery acid and stuff like that. And most of the fire wasn't at the level of where the batteries were stored. It was more up high in structure more than it was down low where the batteries and stuff were at. So we weren't seeing a lot of involvement with that kind of stuff within that either. That was a good question, Commissioner.
Yes, sir.
Do you use drones in your firefighting?
The fire department itself does not have any drones, but we have drones available that we can use within the police department, as well as Burleigh County Sheriff's Office. They have some. They are actually being friends with several of those deputies and police officers. They're more than happy to use their drones on our fires. My roommate several years ago was actually a drone operator for Burleigh County, and we had an apartment fire, and Captain Belkey was up on the aerial ladder controlling the stream of water, and Justin, my roommate, has some super neat photos and some video of that. And the drone images and video provides us with a whole different type of view than from our typical on the ground in front of the building perspective. So super beneficial, but yes, they are, all it takes is a simple phone call, call over the radio, and they'll be there within minutes. Great question. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a state school that teaches firefighting or not?
There is. The two closest to here are in Moorhead and East Grand Forks. Does Dickinson have one now too? Dickinson have a program now too? That's the only three in our area, right? East Grand. Oh, they did? Yeah. Okay. Don't go to East Grand to go to fire school.
Moorhead, Wahpeton, and Dickinson.
Wahpeton has one as well. Okay, yep. So, yep. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So when when someone calls 911, are you guys, is some fire department in town automatically respond? Do you guys always send an engine or a truck to every 911 call, or is there a protocol for?
Not always. It depends on the nature of the call. Essentially, what it narrows down to is if we could make a difference. Again, I use the old man stubbed his toe. Fire department's probably not going to that. The old man's having trouble breathing. Yeah, we're probably going to go and go help with that. So, when the call comes in, the dispatcher takes down the information. As the dispatcher is taking down the information, once enough criteria has been met from that information, it triggers us to be sent and attached to the call, at which time they send us out. So it's all based on the information of the call. Good question. Yes, ma'am.
And is that, pursuant to his question, if it's a real health issue, then the fire department has better equipment to batter that door?
We do. We are all EMTs. We're all medically trained. We carry a medical bag with us, so we have oxygen and masks and everything to help the patient with all
I
that.
was thinking in terms of having to get inside the building, fire department better equipped than, say, the ambulance?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Actually, that's very common. When the ambulance responds to someone that has stubbed their toe, they may be locked out of the building, at which time they will call dispatch and have us dispatched simply to come let them in the door. That is super common. That happens every day. So, yep. Good question. Yes,
One last question. Is there a mandatory retirement age for firefighters?
Well, if there is, Captain Wilkie has not met it yet. I think it's awesome. Thank you. Sure. Do you like current or like? I have a request for all current firefighters in the room to come up front to pose for a photo.
How about current and past?
Is that okay? You okay with that? Retired firefighters too? Yes. All current and retired firefighters in the room, please come up front for a photo.